Friends who don't celebrate your success and your triumph aren't friends. Good morning and welcome back, and happy Tuesday and happy springtime. Okay, well, Kayla has a fun topic. Would you like to do the introductions?
So this was an inspo from a different podcast I was listening to, but it got my brain working because, so to take it back, there's this podcast called Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson, which I didn't know he lives in Austin, Texas, so that's kind of cool. He was doing an interview with Alex Hormozy, which I name dropped last week. I mean, it's not like I know him personally. I just I feel like he has good content. They were doing hard truths or inconvenient truths you need to know or need to hear. A lot of it was business stuff, a lot of it was life stuff. But it was just like a kick in my pants and a reminder that life is hard, but so are you. So you need to pull up your little bootstraps and get some shit done. I don't know. I just really liked the wave of energy behind it, and it got me feeling motivated. And also, I feel like very much truth seekers and honest ables. No, honest. I don't know.
I just ate
My coffee is not set in. I don't know. I just feel like this was down our alley with being very sincere, yet potentially, just like get our brains moving a little bit and talking about some things that maybe we don't want to hear, but we need to hear.
I really like this. I'm really excited about it when you said it from the beginning. I also wrote down the name of that podcast so I can beep them. You said Modern Wisdom? Well, here we go. In keeping sort of with what Kayla just said, I started off this podcast telling her that I didn't have time to type up my answers that I had on my written list, and then I realized that was a lie. I just didn't make time, and that feels very in line with this.
That's really nice that you just are aware, and that's okay because you still wrote them down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still prepared, but it's just not how I ideally prepare. And then it's just funny how many times we say I can't or I didn't have time, and really it's that we just didn't make time, which is maybe okay too. Like maybe the things that you chose to prioritize were in fact more important, but I do find it to be a helpful shift in the way that I think about things. Okay, yeah. I didn't number these because I don't work in numbers very well. So we'll just dive in. I assume because I'm verbose that I may have written a few more than you, but I'll go first. I bet we're going to have some overlap.
Oh, yeah.
For everyone listening, I have a really itchy nose because it's spring. And I'm going to try really hard not to sneeze into this microphone. And I'm also going to try not to sniff like that a bunch into this microphone because it makes me want to die when people are sniffing all the time. But that's my caveat. There's pollen everywhere. Okay. Fuck, I just did it again. Okay. Hard truths you need to hear. Work is not always fun. That's why it's called work. And I really think that this podcast highlights it because I can't think of something I would rather do than this project. But there are still mornings when my alarm goes off for us to record where it would be easier to sleep. Like, it still requires effort. Yeah. And this whole do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, I think is dog shit. Because I don't know, maybe I'm just a lazy piece of shit, but I really think that left to my own devices, I could do nothing. I wouldn't be fulfilled. But I have to put forth an effort and be uncomfortable to get done and get gratification out of the things that I actually want to do.
1000%. That is, I didn't say those things verbatim in mind, but that's one of the points I was trying to get across. Everyone feels as though everything should come so easy to them, and I deserve this and I deserve that. I mean, it's attainable, but you have to put in the work. And even something that you love to do, you still have to, like you said, put an effort. Case in point, this morning, speaking of pollen, I don't know if you can see in my eyes, but they're very swollen and very red because I almost gouged them out last night because they're so itchy. And my alarm went off at 6, and I just, it was hard. But here we are, and now I'm having a great time.
I think maybe that's the dingleberry. That's like the hitch that we don't highlight is it can be very gratifying and still require you to put forth effort. I, in fact, would argue that because you have to put forth effort, that's why it's gratifying.
Mm-hmm. Because...
I was just going to say, it's why I think kids need to play sports, because exercise has highlighted that for me more than anything else in the world, that things are uncomfortable and you don't want to do them, and you'll feel better and be rewarded for it in the end.
Great. If you want to do something, you actually have to do something.
Dude, if that ain't the truth.
So going in line with what you just said, and to say it more eloquently, you can say, I saw this quote on Instagram from a different account. It said, "We cannot become what we want by remaining what we are." That's a nicer way to say it. But it's so true. You know, if you want to do something, or if you want to change something, or if you want to get somewhere, like you said, you can't just magically jump there. You have to put in the work and steps to make it and get there then, and change what you want to change and do the things you want to do. It's not just going to magically happen, unfortunately.
I mean, every famous person that's a comedian or a podcaster talks about all the time that they did all the work in the dark that nobody cared about, and how there is no such thing as an instant success. Even though, I mean, is he in trouble now? I haven't heard his name, but I feel as though Matt Rife just skyrocketed into the stratosphere all of a sudden. But he'd been doing stand-up for years and years and years and years and years and years before that, and touring, and then something clicked. So I think you can have instant recognition, but the work was already there. Mm-hmm. And the people that get famous fast, or who have success fast before they have to put in the work, tend, I believe, to fizzle out because your product's not as good, or you haven't built up the stamina.
Or you may be in the Illuminati.
Or that. I was looking to see if there were any triangles in my background, but I don't see any.
What? I derailed. Sorry.
No, what you said. There's definitely a saying that we say all the time in social work world, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. People might say that outside of social work, but we do it all the time. That's what that reminds me of too. If you want to make a change, then you have to do something different. You don't just stumble upon a new behavior by repeating the same old cycle.
Yep.
AKA go to therapy. Okay. Next, I'm just ready for all the YouTubers to talk to me about my double chin posting this, but this is also being said to myself. Being overweight isn't good for you. It's not good for you. Loving yourself is good for you, but you can love yourself and respect the machine of your body and what it needs to work, and then treat it as such. It's sort of like saying what your body needs healthy food and exercise. It would be like knowing your car needs gas and then just putting vegetable oil in it instead. Mm-hmm. It's not going to run. It doesn't work that way. I don't know. Anyway, I think women especially, we all have weird relationships with food and weird relationships with our body. And I'm trying to work this month on paying attention to how I think about my body, like the silent ways I talk to myself about it. And definitely I have some improvements to make. And there are healthier choices that I could also make as well. But this whole thing where we're running around and pretending that obesity isn't a problem is wild to me.
I agree. I would argue that if you have so-called self-love for yourself, you would not be complacent with where you are if you are obese or highly overweight. Because if you really loved yourself, you would want to take care of yourself. Now, I think you can love yourself with where you're at, but also then know there's effort you have to put forth to not stay there.
It's definitely, you can love yourself through the journey. I also think that we've gotten really shitty as a society and as women of we're making ourselves our bodies, if that makes sense. So when it would be a nice shift if we could say that we love ourselves and that be the core of who we are and not so tightly wound around our skin sack. Because then it's a lot easier to say, this is not where I would like for this to be, and that doesn't devalue me as a person. By the same token, just because you're thin doesn't mean you're healthy either. Because there are plenty of people, I think this was more common in older generations too, where women weren't comfortable going to the gym and things like that, but there's so many people who are a healthy weight but don't eat nutritious food, and they have that weight because they just eat very, very little, and then their body doesn't have a lot of reserve, and they don't have a lot of stamina, and that's not, you might look aesthetically, objectively better, and people might make a false assumption that you're healthier, but I definitely think it's possible when you're measuring health. You could have somebody that's a little overweight, and in the process of working out and eating good and all of those types of things, that is actually quote unquote healthier than the person that's thin, that drinks 1,000 Diet Cokes and runs off caffeine and cigarettes all day. So, I mean, it's definitely not weight based all around, but also weight is still a factor. So I don't know why we're still pretending that it's not. And I also think everybody that's beating this drum of love yourself at every pound, whatever, I think just what I said, why are you making it so much about people's bodies? Just, you can be a cool person and have a great personality, and then also you might just eat too much. That's your thing that you can work on, but that doesn't make you a piece of garbage. And also, if people tell you that objectively it would be healthier if you made healthier choices in life, they are also not calling you as a person a piece of garbage. I just don't get it.
If I was with somebody or best friends with somebody or just met someone on the street and we're having a conversation and they were overweight and they were saying, like, I love myself the way I am. I love that I'm 100 pounds overweight. I think I'm beautiful. I would say, I wish I could say this. Maybe I wouldn't have the balls to say to the person, but I think where we need to be at is having honest conversations where it's, yes, you are beautiful and I love you as a person. I want you to be around for a long time. So you really, like, we need to focus on getting healthy, not so much for the looks, but because that's not healthy and you're probably you have a higher chance of dying, and I want you here in my life. So the fact that we're pushing this, oh, if you're fat, you're fine. If you are still a beautiful human being, but it's not healthy. And there's a difference between those two. And wanting someone to be healthy and wanting something that's best for that person is absurd that people call that like fat phobic. It's just ridiculous.
It is crazy.
Goes right into my next one because I said you have to choose your heart. You can be lazy, you can get fat, you can get sick, you can be complacent and not go for your dreams, and you can regret it and you can be miserable. Or you can bust your fucking ass and put in your sweat and tears and grind it out and go through really hard workouts and get up really early and sacrifice things, but then you get to do what you want to do and hopefully become or get to where you want to be, physically and mentally.
I think excuse me, I think it's really easy for us as people to just kind of get into our routine and we just do what we do and we don't know that there's an alternative. I'm so thankful that exercise has been such a part of my life, even though my intensity with it maybe has ebbed and flowed. But I would feel so bad because I've had the alternative of knowing how good it feels to burn off energy. I would be such an anxious little twat if I didn't run that off in the day. And maybe not everybody has to, go like chase their demons down the street every morning and wear themselves out, but I would argue a lot of us do. And when you sit around all day and then you have stress and then you feel anxious, I think a lot of us think, oh, I'm anxious, so I should go do something. I should go lay down or, go do something calm. When I would argue probably if you're feeling that buzzing anxiety, you need to go wear it off. You'd probably feel better if you went and burned it somewhere, just even taking a walk or going up and down the stairs in your apartment complex. I mean, just doing something physical. I think it's our bodies a lot of times being like, help me, I need to move.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So many of us work sedentary jobs too, man. Oh, I didn't know I wrote this, but on my next one, we already touched on it, but I put your worth is not tied to your weight or your fitness level, but your health is. So you can love yourself enough to treat yourself well and eat nourishing food as much as you can afford it and move your body. Because I will definitely hop on my social work soapbox and talk about how your socioeconomic status is directly tied to the amount of healthy food that you can eat. And cheap foods are unhealthy foods typically. But I do think it might not be fun, but even for people who are scrimping or who have a really, really low food diet, there's still healthy options that are cheap. I mean, they may not taste great, but you can get the protein you need from ground beef and brown rice and beans and have a full meal and feel full. It's not going to be brilliant and fun, but I mean, there's ways to do it. It's just not easy and it's definitely not accessible to everybody. And I am very aware that not everyone can take supplements and do all of that stuff, but I do still think there are ways to move your body for free, for sure. And there are ways to eat healthier, and it maybe isn't the healthiest, but I mean, I'm not out here buying all organic because it's unreasonable and I can't afford it, and Jason and I make pretty solid incomes. So anyway, that's just my caveat, is saying I get that it's harder for some people and some people don't have as much access, but you can still not have snack cakes. Like there's still things you can take out of what you're buying.
You can with what you have. That's the bottom line.
Yes, ma'am. Your turn.
Okay. If you haven't found happiness, look at your definition of happiness.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. This came to me on my drive the other day. I was just thinking, we're all striving for happiness and we all want the perfect life and we all want this and we want that. And I feel like a lot of us are unfulfilled and not, I guess we feel unfulfilled because we think happiness is one thing, when really, if you could have nothing and you could be happy, it's all about your perspective. Every day you should wake up and choose happiness, which sounds ridiculous because there are things obviously in life that affect people's moods and their lives, like real life situations. But if you can, I would encourage you to look at your definition of happiness, because is it living in a mansion on 20 acres with a pool and a butler? Like, maybe for some people, but also you could be really, really happy living in an apartment with your loved ones and having the food that you need to eat and being able to wake up in the morning and look at the sunrise. You could be happy if you choose to look at things differently. So I would encourage people to redefine their definition of happiness.
I like that. Same with success.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Love.
This one's very simple and straightforward. You can't change people.
Mine's pretty straightforward too. Stop trying to impress people who really don't care about you. We're all going to die one day.
Ain't that the truth? I guess I had more about not being able to change people, but I put thinking that you can change people's arrogance. So you might be able to restrict or control behavior, but you aren't changing their internal landscape.
Preach.
And I mean, I'm not a parent, and I don't know how parents negotiate that, because you obviously have to have rules and boundaries for your kid. And I guess you hope when you're talking about children that they internalize some of those lessons, and then that becomes their guidepost. And I don't know when the shift happens, and I'm sure it happens slowly over time, where they start to take on their own autonomy. But I don't know. I think that's just a big one. You have a lot of people in helping fields who really want people to do better for themselves, and you can pave the way, and you can clear obstacles, and you can create opportunities. And I think that's the responsibility of government and society and religious organizations. But you can't make people make better choices.
Yeah, I agree.
And it will boggle your mind, but you don't. It's arrogant, just like I said. I think it's arrogant for you to think that you have that kind of control over somebody.
Yes. I heard this quote about raising children specifically, and I loved it because we're obviously in that phase of our life. It was saying you have to teach your children how to be a kind and caring human being, and then they have to learn how to figure out who they are. He said it more eloquently, but it's like you have to raise them to be a good human in society, and then they have to raise themselves to figure out who they are and what they want in life.
Yeah, where they fit in that society.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Okay. This is more of a question, but the question I propose to people is, what would you do if you could guarantee that no one would judge you?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Like if you had every opportunity on the table, or really if you didn't have any opportunity on the table, but you wanted to go for something, if you could guarantee no one in your life or outside your life would either know or judge you or even care, if you knew that no one was going to judge you for potentially failing, how much more stuff would you go for?
It's so true. That is definitely a key fixture of the artist way. Talking about that with art and creativity, I think you and I definitely did that with this. Except people were judgy, and that's fine, because that's the reality of the world.
If people like to comment on my double chin, but you know what? I'm not content, and it will be gone soon.
Sometimes I just wonder if even at a certain point I'm just going to have a goosel, because that's just what my genetics are going to do.
It's true. Do what you can with what you have.
We'll figure it out. Here's one. This is if you work for a corporation or a large agency. Your employer doesn't care about you. Your supervisor might, but your organization does not. So stop sacrificing yourself for them.
Stop giving your life outside of work to work. Stop letting work take up your brain space outside of work. Stop letting it just completely take over. Gosh, since we've had our baby, I have made very hard boundaries. Sometimes I still fail, but the boundaries, man. I perform better at work when I don't have to work outside of work. So,
yeah,
stop bugging me outside of work.
I think that is a good point. I think that I get there's realities to some things and pressures and all of that, but even just the allegiance to a job, or, I totally understand if I were to leave my position, it would put my team members in the lurch and I would feel bad about that, but it wouldn't stop me from making a decision. I'm extremely happy with where I am right now, but it wouldn't stop me from making a choice that's better for me and my family in the long run. There's so many people that stick it out with a company and, I feel bad to leave or whatever else. And it's like, if you're not happy and you have a better opportunity somewhere else and you're not taking it or not even looking into those options because of some misaligned loyalty to an agency whose top executive does not have a clue who you are, you're overvaluing yourself, no offense, and you're also overestimating the ability of an organization to give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're really good at your job, but
replaceable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if you're irreplaceable, then make them pay you irreplaceable money.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because they talk about this in the podcast on the way you look at it, whether you're chasing the cheese or you're running away from the cat, instead of saying, the work's okay and my boss is just all right, but I have some friends here and I don't want to let them down and it works. Like, I make a good amount of money. That doesn't sound as detrimental or motivating as looking back and saying, I wasted 30 years of my life at a job that I didn't love with a boss that didn't care about me, and I didn't go for my dreams and I regret it. That hits a little harder.
Mm-hmm. And, same, just what I was saying, what you're saying. The people in your immediate bubble of your job, you can care about, they probably care about you, that's all great. And that part can be hard and there's a loss. And that is like a cost benefit piece to your work. But if you think of the bigger agency wouldn't dump you in a heartbeat to serve its bottom line, I don't know. That to me is just silly.
Yeah. Okay, these last three for me are, I'm taking from the podcast, from Chris Williamson and Chris Hormozy, because they were just so good. So these are not of my own creation. These are theirs. They just were kind of mind-boggling. So I wanted to put them out there. Okay, first one. Hard times and hate are a requisite for success. It's not a happenstance. It's not maybe. There will be hard times and there will be people hating on your road to success and once you're there.
I really like that. It's going to touch on one of mine in a minute. I'll just skip ahead to it. Friends who don't celebrate your success and your triumph aren't friends.
Ooh. Can I just lead right into this next one then? Because this is literally perfect. Also from the podcast. People want you to do well, but not better than them.
That is a great way of putting it.
It's like, hey, you go for your dreams. I'm so here for you. Look at you go. And then when you do it, or you just get a little progress, or when you make it, oh, you're too good for us, or, people change up when things start moving because they see that you went for it and they haven't.
There's for sure a thing in that in the artist way, and she says that those are blocked creatives, and that's why they're being angry. I mean, the old saying, misery loves company, definitely rings true. I do think that there are people who can genuinely celebrate their victories of their friends, but it takes doing the inner work on yourself, and I think it's a hallmark of a healthy person when they can genuinely celebrate with somebody that they care about. That's definitely the other person's issue if you're doing your best and you're having success and they're pooping on you for it. I think that's always a good thing to remember, that that's their problem. And it's unfortunate because there will be people where you think that you were good friends with them, or you thought that they were supportive, and then something will shift and change, and it can be very disappointing. But If people can't be there with you when you're doing well, I would argue it's harder to stick it out with someone when they're really having success than when they're having a real poop show.
Oh, yeah. Because it's easier to be like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's easier to look down on someone and say, it's going to be okay. You know, I'm here for you, rather than, even if they're just making the steps to get somewhere. You know, if you want to start a diet or stop drinking, you know, it's like, oh, you're not drinking tonight, you're too cool for us. It's just like, wow, what? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just choosing not to drink because I don't want to feel like asshole tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, I feel that. I can think of numerous examples of people that I know too where I've heard that. It's just poop. It's poopish. Let's all be better friends to each other, ladies. Okay. Being a martyr and neglecting yourself and your own needs doesn't make you noble. It often is harder to hold a boundary than to give in to one. To all my fellow helping professionals, we all have problems with this.
Yeah. The givers don't give to themselves.
And then they'll tell everybody about how much they've gave. You know, I gave this much and I'm so tired. I'm not talking about moms because there's phases where that's just what you're doing, but especially when you're talking about another adult family member or your job, and I work the hardest and I do the most and I stay the latest and I get here the earliest and I'm the most tired. Like, bitch, that's not something to be proud of. You need to go address your whatever is making you think that that's what you have to do to be of value.
Mm-hmm.
Next. Are you done?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying next, like you were on a roll.
Oh,
I have one more.
Do you want? Here, I'll buzz through a couple.
Okay.
Someone always has it better than you, and someone always has it worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
Just quit comparing. God, I was on a roll the other day. Not all parents are healthy, and not everyone has relationships with theirs. So instead of assuming that the child is an asshole, consider perhaps why they made that decision.
Boundaries are sometimes outside of work and friendships too. Sometimes it has to be family.
Mm-hmm. That's another one I've seen, especially in a healthcare setting, because you'll try, and I've heard this story so many times from different friends of mine who've worked in hospitals. An old person will show up and they seem nice or whatever, and then they start trying to find family members when they're looking at discharge planning, and they'll call a kid and the kid will be like, forget my fucking number. And people who have healthy relationships with their parents, will be in the hospital unit talking shit like, oh, how could they, and da da da. But people who've had fraught relationships with their parents, or just have exposure to people who have, recognize that you have no idea what the history was there and what the reason for that is. It's pretty against the societal norm to do. So perhaps withholding judgment and considering that they might have a reason, and maybe not, but I just always thought that was very interesting. People who have really great parents is great, but they need to remember that that's not been the case for everybody in the world. Okay. Everyone needs to go to therapy.
Yes.
Oh, there might be a pill for it, but that doesn't mean you have to take it. I am not talking about mental health, and I am not talking about serious and persistent mental illness, because you probably do need to take it, and it is not my business to tell you otherwise. But when we are talking about run-of-the-mill blood pressure, or things that are the result of obesity or poor diet or lack of exercise, I don't understand why the goal is not to remedy the situation through a change in your behavior. Now, if you've got to take a pill to get to a safe location, totally get that. And I've been guilty of this too, because I will eat myself into a heartburn frenzy and then want to go take something for heartburn. Mm-hmm. But I did make a point to get off a daily heartburn pill So I was like, I don't like these side effects, and I could stop eating like such a goddamn animal and not have to take this every day.
Again, people sometimes want to choose their hard, and some people aren't going to have the will to stop eating like shit and move their body a little bit, even just little steps. So they're just like, yeah, just give me the pill, which then leads to another pill, which leads to another pill, because one pill is going to give you headaches, and then you have a headache pill, and that's going to give you heart medication problems, and then that one's going to lead to something else, and then it just goes down and down and down, and that's why it should be called sick care, not health care.
It's true. Also,
Because
everyone
American healthcare does not get to the root of the cause. You have to go to a functional medicine doctor, which costs money, which then means there's a disappropriate amount of people who can get these things. Unless you listen to podcasts, which not this one, but there's other ones that can help you with these things.
It's definitely true. And I mean, I work in healthcare, and I have a lot of respect for a lot of physicians doing their best with people who are very ill, and also don't stop taking things without consulting somebody who's a professional. But also, I don't know. I don't understand not wanting to try to at least fix it yourself in the situations where you can. Which brings me back to go to therapy, because your blood pressure could be just unaddressed PTSD symptoms. Okay.
Even body pain can be PTSD.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, there's so much stuff. I know.
Don't even get me started
be a
on
whole
chronic
other
pain
episode.
and fibro and unaddressed mental health concerns, because the trauma is going to come out somewhere. So if it's not coming out in your brain, it will come out in your body. Okay. Last but not least, nope, I have two last but not leasts. One, you're not that special, so just mind your own damn business and focus on what you need to do to get better and grow. I'm saying that to myself. And number two, people need people. And we were built for community. And I understand for those of us, like myself, that work around people all day and people are exhausting. But we can't let ourselves get into the mentality of being alone and isolated. You can definitely choose your community. You can be intentional about who comes into your inner circle, and you should be. But at the end of the day, we were not meant to be an island. And yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I could say some things. I agree with that 100%. My last one really just dug me deep. Okay, so here we go. I don't know if that doesn't even make any sense. Okay. Again, from the podcast, Modern Wisdom. You've already achieved goals you said would make you happy. Damn it. Like yes, all of us who want to perform and go to the next level and do the next thing and do this and do that and prove to ourselves this, we always, before we recognize, hey, you did a great job, like take a second and appreciate where you've come from. You are just always looking to the next thing. And as much as that's good for productivity, you also have to remember what you wished for back then. If you're there now, you have to be appreciative and be grateful for those things, because if you keep chasing down something else, again, you're probably never really going to find happiness, because you're going to keep chasing after something that's maybe non-existent until you change your mind.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes back to the happiness one that you said, defining your definition of happiness. That's such a good point. It is such a trap, that I'll be happy when discussion. Yes. You've got to find peace and joy and contentment internally, and recognize that those external situations aren't supposed to dictate your internal landscape.
Yes. I feel like with a lot of these things we've touched on, be grateful for where you are, but don't be complacent to stay that way if you're not happy where you are. Don't let other people's opinions matter, because at the end of the day, we're all going to die, and they really don't matter.
That's really definitely a hard truth that people need to hear, is we're all going to die.
Yeah. We're all going to die. So does it really matter what Susie Q down the block thinks? Not really. Not really, Susie Q. You like my double chin? You can kiss my ass. I'll hear you in the comments.
Right? What? Oh, I say that all the time to patients. Like, and I stole this from my coworker Jenny as an example, but she said, we're all on a train. It's all going the same direction. We are all going to hit the end of it at some point, but half of us are refusing to acknowledge that, and the other half of us are fine to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has to be a morbid pants, but we are not going to live forever, which to me feels inspiring and makes moments more poignant, is that you know that they're not forever. And we're young, and a lot of us feel invincible, and a lot of us haven't had to deal with a lot of disease or death or incapacitation, but it is there, and it is lurking around the corner, and life is hard, and our bodies decay. So just getting back to gratitude and where you are now and appreciating that and taking things as they come, because you just have no idea.
Yep.
And on that note, I'll see you next Tuesday.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.